Welcome to this Mayflowers garden tour, where you'll see 13 different flowering perennials, shrubs, and trees, all blooming right now in my garden beds, here in Zone 7, Southern New Jersey. I'm Laura from Garden Sanity. Let's begin the flower show. As the winter heath flowers fade, the white Candytuft takes center stage. In addition to the gorgeous low carpet of white in spring, Candytuft is an evergreen perennial, so you get year-round green color. And rabbits don't touch this plant at all. Leucojum Gravetide Giant is an easy bulb to grow. Each flower looks like a tiny Victorian lampshade, with little green dots decorating the ends. Here's some tiny white Muscari flowers in front of this patch of Leucojum. And the grassy bits are the remaining crocus leaves. Leucojum are great for beginners, and something different from daffodils and tulips. This variety is also called giant snowflake or summer snowflake, even though it flowers in mid to late spring. Leucojum naturalize over time and are deer and rabbit proof. Here, they're growing around the totally tangerine geum, which will begin flowering soon. Our crepe myrtle tree is very late to leaf out each year, so I have Poeticus Actaea daffodils around the base of the tree. Poeticus Actaea is also called the poet's daffodil, which is easier to say than Actaea. It's one of the last daffodils to bloom, so I love that it ends my own daffodil season in the front yard. These daffodils are very fragrant, but you need to be up close to enjoy the scent. Next to the daffodils are charming yellow flowers called Little Leo Leopard's Bane, a spring-flowering, long-blooming perennial. These haven't bloomed in years. Ever since landscapers we hired had accidentally covered them in mulch the year I couldn't garden after my double hip replacement surgery, I just about cried. So you can imagine my joy when I saw these finally blooming again this year. Fothergilla is one of my favorite shrubs for multi-season interest. In early spring, you get these pale green flower buds that almost look like pine cones. And they quickly turn into the most beautiful bottlebrush flowers. And they smell like a mix of spices and honey. It's subtle, yet heavenly. Fothergilla can slowly spread over time, and I can either let these new shoots that you see here develop, or I can dig them up and begin new shrubs elsewhere. That's an orange rocket barberry behind the Fothergilla. And you can see Candytuft in the distance. Behind the Fothergilla, you see some pretty blue flowers down low. These little plants are Ajuga chocolate chip, a spreading ground-covered perennial with blue spring flowers. I planted these because rabbits don't like them, but they do love my Fothergilla. So these 5 plants will fill in and protect the Fothergilla for me. You see, this shrub, in particular, really took a beating from the rabbits. Each Ajuga plant can spread 2 to 3 feet wide over time, so this will look like a pretty river of blue in a year or so. Prairifire crabapple leaves emerge as burgundy and mature to dark green. The round flower buds are a colorful prelude to the blossoms. And then, it seems like overnight, the flower buds burst open. This tree is covered in flowers, and the color is incredible. The scent is intoxicating, like the perfect perfume that doesn't overwhelm you, but rather wafts over you and makes you stop and inhale, and wow, is it calming. Across the yard is the limelight hydrangea tree and Magnolia Jane. And by the way, bees love these flowers. These late-blooming daffodils are Delnashaugh Daffodils, and it's pure luck that they're blooming at the same time as the Prairifire crabapple they surround. This was the newest bed I planted last year. There's Geum in front of Golden Euonymus, and Lavender Phenomenal on the corner, with a young firelight hydrangea amongst the ornamental alliums yet to bloom. Delnashaugh begin white with bits of yellow and develop apricot pink ruffles as they mature. They have a wonderful scent, subtle unless you're up close. Their white petals glow when backlit by the sun. This tiny plant is Amsonia stormcloud, and its debut was in my video about proper perennial plant spacing. A tiny seedling, I protected it with a chicken wire cloche in winter. It has periwinkle blue star-shaped flowers in late spring, and I'm thrilled that I got some already. It's small now, but will eventually be 3 feet tall by 3.5 feet wide. Magnolia Jane is one of my favorite spring flowering trees. Since it blooms later than some other magnolia varieties, it has less chance of frost damage. However, this year we got hit twice with frost that damaged many of the flowers. The blossoms that remain are still lovely. And now that the leaves are starting to come out, they make this tree look even prettier. Last year, robins made a nest in this tree, and I hope they do it again this year. There's the old nest up there. We added this young Magnolia Jane last year to replace 2 trees that had died. It's nice and healthy and had several blooms, and there's still 1 bloom left to enjoy. Before we know it, this little gal will be much taller, like her sibling. These are Thalia daffodils, the most beautiful white daffodil I've ever seen. And I didn't plant them. They must have been mixed into a previous order planted in this particular spot 2 years ago. Thalia has been a magical spring surprise for me this year, and now I want to plant more. Here's the latest on my Appalachian Redbud stick, a bare root tree that never quite took. It's planted in the backyard, and here you can see the dappled willow in the distance against the fence, next to the Magnolia Jane. And late blooming daffodils in this bed. And of course, Candytuft Hellebores around the base of the plant. The gorgeous blossoms are mainly toward the bottom of the stick. The color is stunning, and why I wanted this variety. The Candytuft Hellebores are still blooming, going on 2 months of flowers. My best hope for this redbud stick is that it grows and becomes what I'd call a redbud shrub. And then, if it ever grows taller, I'll consider that icing on the cake. I finally chopped off the top of the stick, which was painful for me, but not for the redbud. I am getting smaller buds further up the stick and small leaves on the stem. The color is gorgeous. The red Devon daffodils are finishing up. But nearby, these daffodils are taking over the show, a mix of yellow cheerfulness and white cheerfulness daffodils. There are pale yellow ruffled petals and creamy white ruffled petals. Each stem holds multiple flowers, and they're very strong against storms, with only a couple of them falling over this spring. I hope you'll watch my Spring Garden Tours video playlist to see more of what's been blooming in my gardens, and that you'll subscribe to see more videos like this one. Until next time, happy gardening.